Hey, this is Warren Bird, and I had the privilege of co-authoring Better Together, which is about healthy church mergers. And we want to talk about 3 myths of church mergers in this short video. The first myth is that they don't work. And not only does a book have lots of examples of how they've worked, and we'd probably put half the examples in the book of how they do, but since writing the book, all kinds of people have come to me or to lead author Jim Tomberlin and said, hey, let me tell you my story, either thanks to the book that helped me do it, or I didn't even know about your book, and this is what God did, but I know you're interested in mergers, so let me tell you about it happening. So we are all the more convinced that they're working. Jim Tomberlin, what's another myth about mergers?
Well, I would just say, just to add to what you've said, Warren, about mergers not working, we've actually seen a dramatic, continuing growing and dramatic increase in church mergers. And we're up to nearly 40% of all multi-site churches have a campus through a church merger or the acquisition of a church building.
Actually, the statistician in me wants to tell you it's slightly above 40%.
Oh, wow.
of camp mergers that are part of becoming a multi-site church.
Well, so clearly this is working. But another thing we hear a lot, another myth about mergers, is that all mergers are hostile takeovers. And I would just say the mergers that we're working with, the mergers that come to pass, are not hostile. As a matter of fact, if they're hostile, we advise walking away from that conversation. But these work when the 2 leadership bodies of 2 congregations, the boards, the pastors, the senior leaders, when they become in an agreement, going through a process, and they land on this is what makes sense for both of us, these are not hostile. These they're united, and they're ready to recommend it to their congregations. And not everyone's going to be. It's not always a unanimous vote, but they're not hostile, and they're healthy, and they have great outcomes.
Jim, a quick humorous story to underscore that. When the book came out, I happened to be the next day or next week speaking with Tim Lucas at Liquid Church and their senior leadership team. And I said, has anyone contacted you about a merger? And he said, no, why would they do that? And I said, well, they will, and you're going to need this book to help you. Well, that night, a 100-plus-year-old church, the elders called and said, we love what you're doing at Liquid Church. We want the gospel to go forward. We can't do it. We will give you, in essence, the keys to this building and property, if you will bring the gospel to a new generation. And I've been there many times and seen so many of the old timers, the former, congregation, and there is a lot of joy in what God has done in their building. Jim,
wait, Warren, let me say one thing to that as well, is that as we said in our book, the majority of mergers are actually initiated by the joining church.
Yes.
Which, now, more churches leading churches are beginning to ask the question and beginning to get a little more understanding about how they could initiate that conversation. But all that is just to say, the kind of mergers we're talking about are not hostile takeovers.
Yeah. Third and final myth is that we can do it ourselves, meaning by prayer and by discernment within the congregation, we can spot the landmines that are ahead, the potholes that are ahead, and that we have the tools to be able to assess what might be coming. And we say that's a myth. Jim Tomberlin, you want to comment?
Well, absolutely. I would say that, church mergers, most church leaders don't wake up every morning thinking, boy, one day we're going to get to merge with somebody. It's just not on the radar screen. And there's often this negative perception about it. And so when a merger opportunity does present itself, this is unknown territory for church leaders. And there's a lot of landmines, as you've mentioned, you can easily step on unintentionally in this merger conversation. So it's very helpful. Our book I think has been helpful to a lot of churches.
We actually have a couple of chapters about how do you assess that, how do you deal with it, and so forth.
That's why we wrote it. That's why we wrote the book, to help discern quickly, is this a good potential or not? But usually churches need a third party. Sometimes some denominations have that third party that has the best interests of both churches in view. It can bring them together and help them navigate through that. So this is what we do at Multi-Site Solutions. But this is something that usually needs a third party to help them guide that through that conversation.
Great. This has been Warren Bird and Jim Tomberlin talking about Better Together, Healthy Mergers Work, forward by Craig Groeschel. We hope that God uses this to help clarify your dream and help you make more and better disciples of Jesus.